Welcome to the ICDB 2022 special. This is another special broadcast to commemorate the 2022 International Children's Day of Broadcasting. My name is Ulla Mueller, and with me on the program are
And being your bachelor, we are so happy to have you join us.
According to statistics, 1 in 3 girls and women experience physical or sexual violence in Nigeria. Most of this violence are from close relatives, partners, and other people known to them.
The COVID-19 pandemic has strengthened perpetrators, leaving women and girls locked up with abusers.
Some cultures and religious activities further empower perpetrators without fear of repercussions. To make it worse, most abused people do not know how to break free and seek for help.
On this edition of the International Children's Day of Broadcasting 2022 special, discussing the topic, gender-based violence, a way out for the Nigerian child.
UNFPA is one of the UN's leading agencies working together to further gender equality and women's empowerment, and to address the physical and emotional consequences of gender-based violence. On today's program, we have with us the UNFPA's representative to Nigeria, Ms. Ulla Mueller. Thank you for having us, Ma.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
One in 3 of us will experience violence before the age of 15. 1 in 3 of us will be married off as a child. 1 in 3 of us will experience the mental health consequence of gender-based violence. You can put an end to it. Protect women and girls. End violence against women and girls. This message is brought to you by Playback Nigeria and AIT.
I am Generation Equality. At 4, I should be able to play ball with the boys, running for the future like it belongs to me. At 12, I should get the best score in school. I'll be nominated as a head prefect, not as an assistant. At 16, I should be allowed into the uni studying engineering just like the boys, not to be married off as the norm. At 20, I should be the head of student union, not because I know anyone, but because I am qualified. At 25, I should be allowed into politics, not as a woman leader, but as an actual candidate. At 30, I should have a seat in the parliament and make laws for women with other women. At 40, I should chair board meetings, religious meetings, political meetings, and be at the helm of affairs. I should rule the world at 50. Be treated with highest esteem at 60. Look back at 70 and see how the world has treated me graciously to be celebrated at 80. I am a generation where all girls and women are equal. It's been 25 years since the generation. Let's realize women's rights. I am Generation Equality.
Ms. Ulla. Gender-based violence is a very serious case that's going on around the world and also in Nigeria. Where would you say we are on ending gender-based violence?
In Nigeria?
Nigeria
and in the world, we still have a lot of work to do. In Nigeria, we have seen some progress towards ending gender-based violence. Unfortunately, we also saw that went a little bit the wrong way during the pandemic. But one of the key achievements in Nigeria is when the federal government passed the Violence Against People's Appropriations Act, the VAP Act. I'm sure you heard about that in some of the other interviews. So this act has now been domesticated in each of the states, in 30 states out of 36 states. And what this means is that now in 30 states in this country, there's a law that makes it possible for survivors and for victims of gender-based violence to actually access justice. And this is critical because if there's no justice, if women cannot go and see the police officer and make a report and start a prosecution case within the framework of a law, then there's no justice for the survivors of gender-based violence. So that is a major achievement, and we are working very hard to get the remaining 6 states to also domesticate the VAP Act.
Statistics nearly say that 1 in 3 girls and women experience a form of violence by age 15. Would you describe this as a pandemic?
It is absolutely a pandemic. And as I said before, what we saw also during COVID is that we actually saw an increase in the number of survivors of gender-based violence. So when 1 in 3, that means that if we look at the three of you, you're three girls here. One of you would actually on a regular basis be exposed to violence. That is a lot. And when we talk about how many people live in Nigeria, which is more than 200 million, half of them are women. So how many women would that be on a daily basis who would be exposed to gender-based violence? So yes, I would definitely say there's a pandemic. And that's also why the legal framework is so important. Because if we cannot prosecute the perpetrators, then there is no justice. Where do women or survivors, sometimes it can be young men, where do they go for help? And how do we stop it if there's no repercussions? So yes, I think there's very much a pandemic, but not only in Nigeria. I think it's a global pandemic that will continue even after COVID has ended.
Ms. Ulla, what would you say was and is the impact of COVID-19 on gender-based violence?
Well, you just heard me say, unfortunately, we did see, and I think it was also mentioned in introduction, that what we saw was there was an increase in the cases of gender-based violence. Women were locked at home with the perpetrators. And what we saw, not only in Nigeria, was that when you live together in a lot of anxiety, because people are also scared during a pandemic like the COVID pandemic, you live in very small spaces and you cannot get out, the anxiety increases and tensions increases, and you start screaming at each other, you start getting annoyed with each other, and that translated into violence. And women and girls were on the receiving end of that. So I think it had huge implications for women and for the safety of women and girls in Nigeria. And it was serious, and what also then comes with that is, of course, the damages and the severity also increases. And women could not get help. So this is why, for instance, in Lagos State, what we did in UNFPA was that we worked with the government there to have a virtual referral center, so that women could call in and then, without leaving their home, they could actually get help and find someone who can also, if needed, we would have a team together with the Lagos government that could be deployed. So we've done things like that all over the country, and that's what we needed to do.
I deserve an education. I deserve to be protected. I deserve to be included in decision making. I deserve to lead. I deserve a seat at the table. I also am human. Promote gender equality today. End violence against women and girls. This message is brought to you by Playback Nigeria and AIT.
Okay, Ms. Ulla, some people have seen or accepted gender-based violence as a cultural norm due to maybe the society you live in, or how they were brought up with. So how can people know they're being abused, or how can they know that it's a form of harm that shouldn't be?
That is a very good question. And there's no simple answer to that question, I would also say. But I think a good rule is to actually think about, how does this feel? Does this feel right? Or does it feel wrong? So I think there's something around how we understand what is normal and what is not normal. So for instance, if I go and hit you now, you would know that wasn't nice. And then you would probably figure out that something was wrong. So that's one thing about your own agency. But the other thing is also, sometimes we don't see it, because the way we survive, if we live in violence, is by making it normal. So it's really important that we engage with communities, with young people like you, and talk about what is violence and what is this right to your own body and deciding what happens to your own body. Because then that starts to change behaviors. And culture is basically the sum of the behavior that we all do. And culture can change. No culture in the world today is the same that it was 50 years ago. But we all have a role to play in talking to each other, explaining what it is, and why it's important to end it.
Ulla, what would you say that is the role of the Nigerian child in ending gender-based violence in Nigeria?
First of all, spreading the word and having conversations like you do with me today, where you talk about what is gender-based violence and why is it so important that we end it. I think you have a role to play to say, when I grow up, I do not want to be a victim of gender-based violence. I think young men, because it is, as I said, there are also men and boys who are exposed to violence, but it is predominant. 95% of the cases is men's violence against women. And I'm saying this because you have a special role to play. Because you can end it by saying, I will never, ever expose any of my friends, or my girlfriend, or my future wife, or my daughter to violence. You have a key role to play in that. And another thing that is also in the UNFPA definition, gender-based violence, is child marriage. Yeah? So already now, you can start having conversations about, when should you get married? How do you choose your spouse? And again, young men can say, I want to marry someone who actually wants to marry me when she's ready to marry me. So these are the conversations we can start having. Because the more you know, the more you can change. And we very often forget that if we want to change the future, we have to think about who holds the future. And that's you guys. So you have a very, very important role to play. Yeah.
Miss Ulla, if you would pass a message to the Nigerian child, what would it be?
Actually, I don't think I can do just one. Can I do it in one sentence, maybe? I would say, never forget how amazing you are. I have never been in a country where I've seen such talented young people as I've seen in Nigeria. And remember, you have your own agencies and your own rights and your own decision to make, just by virtue of being an individual, a human being. And remember, you are the future of this country. And you have the power to stop gender-based violence. So it starts by you saying no. So remember your value, and remember the power of no.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today, despite your busy schedule. We do not take it for granted, ma'am.
You are more than welcome. It has been absolutely joy. Thanks.
And that is all we have today for this edition of the ICDB special.
This program was brought to you by Playback Nigeria. To know more about how we use theatre to address gender-based violence, please visit www.playbacknigeria.com.
Remember to follow us on our social media platforms at Playback Nigeria on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure you check out the wonderful work we do using theatre on our YouTube page. I am Shalape Abishemiju.
I am Zara Paula Bamiso.
I am Binga Obashala.
I am Ulla Mueller. Do have a great day.